So let's start with major changes you foresee happening by 2030.
Okay, so I think the main industry challenges that we'll have over the next few years are the conclusion of the Tenements Working Group recommendations, excuse me, which are likely to conclude on recommending that buildings get MOTs effectively, where a block of flats, if gets a report done on the general condition of the building, with likely maintenance costs as well. It'll encourage owners to contribute towards improving the condition of the properties. I think what you see inevitably with flats is that quite often customers will live in a flat maybe at the start of their journey in property or at the end of the journey in property. So quite often it's not a long-term thing, but that's not always the case. So I guess if you get to the point where you've got that report, trying to get buy-in from customers to make investment to improve the longer term condition of the stock could be quite challenging.
Yeah, I think it's always been on this podcast has been a recurring theme over time, and that is education to people about, what is a factor, what does a factor do, and all of these sort of things. Totally. And a lot of people who are downsizing from a house to as you alluded to later in life, into a flat, they've never come across a factor. I mean, because most developments were built in the 60s, 70s, 80s didn't have factors. Everything was adopted by the councils. And in fact, I look back at my dad, who still lives in the same house as I grew up in. And he knows what I do for a living, but he has no idea what a factor actually does. Because he lives in a house that obviously doesn't have that. So yeah, I get it. And I guess the other thing is that because of common hold and freehold, and nobody's actually forcing them to do things, buildings can decay, can't they? Because people aren't doing things.
And you're right. I mean, we see it quite often as the misconception around what a factor can and can't do, and what a factor should and shouldn't do. And it's that education piece, and it's important that that's communicated in the right way, and just trying to reinforce that message as often as possible. Which can be challenging.
I remember sitting at dinner. I've probably mentioned this a few times before. Memory starts going when you get a bit older. I always remember my father saying that to me, and I was like, God, I'm never going to get to that age. And now I find myself there. But I always remember I was sitting at dinner. I was sitting beside an accountant, I think it was, who asked me what I did.
No.
Who asked me what I did for a living, and I said what I did, and they went, "Oh, do you know? I just that's funny you should say that, because I'm having a conversation with my factory woman, because I've been paying them money for years, and now they want me to give them more money to fix this thing." And I'm like, is that not how it works? Do you know what I mean? So
it's again, another misconception is I pay a factor fee and that should cover everything. Well, no, that's that covers us as a business to provide that service, and then anything that needs repaired or replaced is over above that. That's quite a challenging thing to overcome.
Yeah, I can imagine. I guess the difference between England and Scotland, though, is in England you get, well, depending on the leasehold, the lease and in the leasehold you live in, you don't really get a choice. It happens, you have to pay it. In Scotland, if you don't want to pay it, then often it doesn't get done.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. My eldest son is currently looking for a flat in London, which is scary enough given the price tag. But I said to him, so are you going to have the roof checked? And he's like, what are you talking? Because it's an old building. And actually, it's share of freehold.
Right.
It's an old building. Have you had the roof checked? Why would they do that? I'm like, yeah, it's an old building. Go check the roof, because otherwise you're in for an eighth of the cost. Okay, cool.
Yeah, just in terms of other things that I think, the industry, the sort of main industry challenges over the next few years related to the Tenement Working Group recommendations is the Scottish Law Commission consultation on compulsory owners associations. I think the initial consultation request responses by August this year. And the Law Commission are considering whether to recommend the government that every block of flats in Scotland has to be run by a group of owners as a body corporate.
Okay.
The Owners Association can then either manage the block of flats or appoint a professional manager, such as a factor.
Yeah.
Okay. The challenge, however, would come when none of the flat owners step forward to nominate themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
In this circumstance, the Law Commission may foresee a stopgap arrangement being legislated for where a local authority of housing association is installed as the factor.
Okay. Wow. I wasn't aware of that last bit. Okay. That's an interesting, because I mean, you get a block of 6, especially if 4 of them are let, is anyone actually interested in stepping up? Or, I mean, there's a lot of responsibility there as well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, you do get better engagement with committees, quite often. So, it's quite often an easier way or a better way, more efficient, effective way of getting things done in the property.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Any other challenges you've
improvement in fire safety legislation. I think certainly we would like to see retrospective powers to fit fire detection.
Yeah.
And smoke extraction systems in older buildings.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, tragically, we had 2 fatalities in one of our buildings in Aberdeen.
Okay.
And there were no fire detection systems in the stairwells.
Wow.
And a significant number of the flats in Scotland are in the same boat. So yeah, that's definitely something we would like to see.
Okay.
And we do have Derek back at the offices championing that.
Right. Okay. Championing it from a
lobbying the government.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Lobbying the government to try and push these things forward.
Yeah, I suppose when it's closer to home, you know what I mean, from the point of view of happening in one of your buildings, it becomes a forefront of your mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it should be at the forefront of everyone's mind. Yeah.
Absolutely, but I guess until something like that happens, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Like that. So yeah, getting retrospective safety systems in older buildings, I think would be great if we could get it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.